Hi, I'm Mike from the Center for Public Dialogue, and I'd like to welcome you to my front door here in beautiful Algonquin territory and in the federal riding of Carleton. In this election, we'd like to encourage you to have COVID safe conversations with candidates. This is a great opportunity to seek justice and speak hope as a citizen and as a Christian. It's also a great help in thinking through our responsibilities as voters. So, through the campaign, our team will do some videos like this one and some other things that could be helpful when you meet your candidates at the front door or in the community. So before sharing some questions that are on my mind, I'd like to share some thoughts on gratitude for leadership. Sometimes I think political cynicism and criticism is a bit of a default for many of us. It's really too easy to scoff at politicians as lazy or incompetent. Now, this terrible pandemic has underlined the reality that public leadership is incredibly hard and that there are no obvious answers to many of our most complex challenges. In many years of doing this work, I've met more political leaders and public servants than I can count. Most of them are thoughtful people who have a noble commitment to public service, who work hard, very hard. So in this election campaign, I encourage you to start your conversations very simply with saying thanks. Thanks for running and taking on this sacred responsibility of public leadership. Know that I'll be praying for you. So over to some questions I'm thinking about and will bring up on this front porch when candidates come calling these days. These days, the Center for Public Dialogue is focused on climate change, refugee justice, and Indigenous justice and reconciliation. So I'll stick to those three themes today. I'll share these questions in a general way, but you can feel free to change them according to the candidate and party at the door. So first off, to climate change. The heat waves and fires of this summer and a very sobering report from the UN make climate change a major concern in this election. Now, Parliament made some helpful steps last session, but it's clear that Canada and people in this country need to continue to make changes to care for the earth and for each other. So how will you and your party make credible progress on carbon emissions targets? And what will you and your party do for a just transition for workers and communities who are connected to carbon-intensive industries and depend on them? Over to refugees. COVID-19 has been hard in Canada, but it's been especially tough on vulnerable communities, including refugees, both here and overseas. Now, I know that sponsors are ready and capable to settle refugees safely. So how will you and your party make way for the safe settlement of refugees as soon as possible? And what will you do and your party do to ensure the just distribution of vaccines to refugee camps and other areas of high risk for COVID-19? Vaccine equity is critical. The uncovering of thousands of unmarked graves at residential school sites across the country underlines for me the moral urgency of reconciliation and decolonization. Many of the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the calls to justice of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls inquiry are left undone. So let's get specific. What will you and your party do to address the injustices of child welfare and education in Indigenous communities? What will you and your party do to ensure that the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is an active framework for reconciliation in Canada? And what will you and your party do to fully implement the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? So friends, all of these are big questions and they're bound to start some conversations. Those conversations are the seeds of hope, justice, and bearing witness. So we ask you just to stay tuned for more election resources. And by all means, feel free to reach out to our team in this election season. Thanks for meeting me at this front door. Take care.